All right, interesting shakeup. Speaking of MSNBC, we've randomly had actually very smooth transitions today.
Yes.
That was totally accidental.
Nice.
Big news. Let's throw this up on the screen. I believe we have a New York Times tear sheet here.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian Williams says he is leaving NBC News. Of course, I have to read you the first paragraph because I actually thought it was kind of funny. Brian Williams, the square-jawed news anchor, laid low by a fabulism scandal, which is a pretty funny way to say, like, he blatantly lied about some stuff.
Straight up lying.
Who mounted a career comeback with a, ready for this one, popular talk show at 11 p.m. on MSNBC. I guess it's all relative. It is more popular than Don Lemon's show over on CNN, so we'll give him that. Announced on Tuesday he would step down from his program after a 5-year run and depart NBC News entirely at the end of the year. So Brian doesn't really say what he is planning on doing, but it doesn't sound like he plans to totally retire. He'll probably end up with a podcast or something.
Yep.
Following much reflection and after 28 years with the company, I've decided to leave NBC upon the completion of my current contract in December. I've been truly blessed. I've been allowed to spend almost half of my life with one company. NBC is part of me and always will be. That might be something you should be embarrassed about. Anyway, moving on. He revealed no immediate plans. He says this is the end of a chapter, beginning of another. There are many things I want to do and I'll pop up again somewhere. New York Times also cites a person familiar with Mr. Williams' decision-making who said that the anchor would consider his options and hope to return to TV or another media platform soon. So interesting development there. I have like a sort of direct Brian Williams connection
You're
here.
a victim. Yeah.
I was a sort of a victim of, although ultimately he did me the greatest
favor. Yeah, he did you a great favor, but at the time it sucked.
Ever been done in my life. But at the time it was hard to take. So as you guys know, I used to work at MSNBC. I was a host there, and ultimately my show got canceled, my contract terminated. Part of what happened in all of this is that was during the time period where Williams had gotten caught lying about the helicopter ride. There were a couple other things that ultimately came out. That was basically like, oh, this was something he kind of routinely did, just make up stories to portray himself as more brave and courageous and heroic than what was actually happening in the situation. So they had benched Brian from, he was hosting, I think, NBC Nightly News at that point. Gigantic contract, making millions and millions of dollars, and they have him on the sidelines, and they're trying to figure out what the hell to do with this guy. So they bring in new president of NBC, Andy Lack. And Lack and Williams are old buddies. And effectively, my understanding is that a big part of why Lack was brought in was to effectively figure out what to do about their Brian Williams problem. So this is during 2015. Ratings at NBC or at MSNBC are total trash. Everyone's bored with the Obama presidency. There's just a complete malaise. Nothing's really working. And so what Lack decides he's going to do is he's going to plug Brian Williams in to the daytime lineup whenever there's breaking news. So he would effectively supersede whatever programs were going on and started to, do his anchorman thing whenever there was big breaking news. And the concept at the time was that we've gotten too progressive, too liberal over here. We want to go back to hard news. We want to be more like CNN hard news. We're going to lean on our NBC News personalities. So everybody during the daytime who had any opinion that was like remotely on the left basically got canned.
Yeah.
So this is the era when Ed Schultz is fired, when I'm fired, when, my whole show is canceled. Ronan Farrow, his show wasn't going on that way. Anyway, Joy Reid actually had her show pulled at that time. And she was kind of, on the sidelines there for quite a while. So there were a bunch of shakeups then, all because they didn't want it to be uncomfortable for Brian Williams when he came into breaking news if there was opinion going on around him. Which is funny now because, of course, in his 11 p.m. slot, he was all opinion.
It was pure opinion.
It turned out that, once Trump got elected in the Trump era, the people who were most willing to be the most ridiculous in their attacks against him, those were the ones that rated the most. Whoever was most willing to be absurd on Russiagate, like Rachel Maddow, those were the shows that did the most. So anyway, in a weird sort of way, Brian Williams lying led to me getting fired by MSNBC, but again, best thing in the long run that ever happened to me, and part of my journey to you today. The other big news at NBC that just came out as kind of a side note to this is, Rachel Maddow, this hasn't been talked about a lot, but she's stepping down from her nightly show.
Very soon, right.
She's remaining at MSNBC, but they haven't even said exactly what she's going to do. It's more like sort of like periodic specials once a week or every other week than a nightly show, which is a huge blow to them because even though obviously you know what we think of her politics and the way that she lied, especially during Russiagate, she is the one person who routinely still
she's the only person
brings in an audience
at all. The only person.
Right. So the news that just came out related to that, and we can put this Byron York's up on the screen tweet. CNN reportedly offered Rachel Maddow $20 million a year to anchor their new streaming service, which is where Casey Hunt is now. And NBC had to effectively like offer her more money and to do a lot less. So she turned down that offer. But pretty interesting to see CNN try to make big moves like that to pump up their streaming service, which is almost certain to fail.
Yeah, no, it is wild. I do think that this, and the reason I wanted to cover the story was not only to, so you could share what happened, but this is the end for them. I mean, they're big personalities. Matt Lauer, obviously, that didn't work out so well. Brian Williams was, I mean, look, whatever you want to say, he was a household name for a long time. People knew who he was. He's gone. Now,
he's
Rachel
someone like
Maddow,
my mom, you would say Brian when she would know who he is.
It was a huge thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew who he was when I was a kid. And then now Rachel Maddow, she's stepping down. Apparently offered $20 million. They are all basically totally screwed heading into the real streaming wars. And meanwhile, I mean, just to toot our own horn, we have been out here building and grinding for years, and they have no idea how to deal with absolutely any of it. The fact that they were willing to offer Rachel Maddow $20 million on CNN Plus is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Yes. Because nobody would actually pay for that. I mean, we're already seeing that whenever you try to put these people behind a paywall or you try to make them compete here in the business, in the real online space, an actual free market of if you're good, then okay, people will watch you. And if you're not, then they have endless other things that they could watch. They don't know what to do. That's why it's like the idea of Brian Williams on a podcast is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, he's not going to be good at it. He doesn't even know how without all the people doing all the work for him. I mean, it's just not the same game whatsoever. So when I just think about the transitional period that we're in, I mean, it gives me some hope. Like Maddow stepping down, Brian Williams out there. MSNBC right now is near an all-time low in ratings. They have plunged in terms of their ratings. Fox is crushing them across the board. Their trust rating, along with CNBC or CNN, has dropped dramatically. I mean, this is a real problem. They have an aging audience that if the fact that they do turn into news, they only turn into Rachel or like NBC News with Lester Holt or whatever. And that can only last for so long, man. I mean, like you always say, look at the actuarial tables. Yeah. It's going to start fading out as time goes on.
Now, in fairness, I think it's still the case. Fox has always had the oldest audience of the cable news channels, but all of these audiences are really old. And you can tell because when you look at, they like to tout the overall numbers. The overall numbers are irrelevant. The only thing they're making money off of is the key demo, which is like 25 to 54. And there is a gigantic gulf between the overall numbers and then what they're
like
actually.
Hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes,
people didn't realize
right. And so like oftentimes now in this era, in that key demo, they're barely maybe getting 100K viewers during the daytime lineup, which is pathetic. But yeah, they're in big trouble. And the fact that you would, even Rachel, who I think Rachel and Tucker are some of the only people who could succeed outside of like, the cable news ecosystem because they genuinely have a following and people who turn up to hear what they have to say. But even her, I mean, the audience is so much older that they're not who you're going to like to buy a streaming service.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're going to watch traditional cable news because that's not what they know how to get to on the channel. That's what they're used to doing.
They've been doing it for 30 years. Turn on the TV.
So it's just funny to me that these big businesses that see the writing on the wall with streaming and know they need to do something, but they keep turning to like, we're going to have Nicole Wallace on Peacock. We're going to have Casey Hunt on CNN streaming service. Like people are going to
I just saw Hallie Jackson is starting a new show.
Oh, really?
Peacock. Yeah.
Funny.
I'm just like, all right.
So, I mean, I just don't know why, just as a matter of business, you wouldn't look to some people who are actually successful in the field that you're trying to get into, but whatever.
That being said, don't try and buy us because it ain't never going to happen.
We're not for sale, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.